Even as I stare into the beautiful CBD of Johannesburg, overlooking the hills and the homes and the trees, while I'm so captivated by the beauty of my environment, I can't help but experience some of these highs and lows of what it means to be an expat. Um, so in this video, I want to talk about it because oftentimes I'm sharing tools and I'm looking great and I'm happy. And while I am thrilled and so excited to be back in the lovely country of South Africa, there are some challenges with this lifestyle, being an expat, being a single mom in another country. And I want to share it. Somebody asked me, what some of the challenges were. And while everyone's challenges are different, I felt like it was an opportunity for me to be vulnerable with y'all. So welcome. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I talk about my experience moving, living, and doing business here on the continent of Africa. I am currently in Johannesburg, South Africa, a place that I love, where I've started a business, and I'm also planning to relocate while I currently live in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. So if that sounds interesting to you, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Like, half of our views are not subscribers, y'all. So show me love. It really helps, specifically in the monetization of the channel, helps me to continue growing. I want to do more content. I want to do more vlogs for y'all, but I need some support. So subscribe, share the video, and leave me a comment below. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the challenges with being an expat, specifically here in Africa, but I feel like this would be relevant anywhere you go. So, as an expat, I can say, right, and I am in community with many expats, so we all relate to these really, really highs and some extreme lows. So some of the highs are, when we get to a new country, when we make new friends, when we go to like a live music experience, or we have some really, local fare, local cuisine, and it makes our heart jump and warm. Those are some of the largest highs that you have as an expat. And these tend to happen really early on, like that 3 months to 6 months, like everything is good, okay? And then some of the lows come and you're just like, damn, I'm doing this by myself, or I'm doing this in a foreign country away from everything that I know. And some of those lows might look like, for me specifically, it's, what I was doing this past week in Johannesburg, doing school tours. In the past, this is something that I did, with my mom or with their dad, or, really with family. And to not be doing those things in a community really was kind of a low for me, if I'm being honest. While I love the school and I love the opportunities that they will afford my daughters, I couldn't help but feel a little low and a little sad that this was something that typically I would be doing with family, and I'm no longer doing that with family. So that was a low for me this week. I've had friends that have other lows. These might look like being scammed, when somebody scams you, or somebody pickpockets you, or you're having issues with your visa, okay? Because that expat life visa situation is a lot. It can be a whole lot. Or, challenges with communications or banking or just business, right? The challenges do come. And those lows can really feel like lows because your community that you're used to leaning on isn't readily there. But one of the things that I've learned that has been so helpful is I reach out to my community when I'm having a low. And I also try to be a safe space for my community when they're having a low. That sense of community, making those relationships, is so important and supports you as you navigate those highs and lows. So those highs and lows are probably the first biggest challenge that I can share with you. And hopefully, if you're an expat, you can relate to, and if you're aspiring to be, you can prepare for and bank on. I speak about it all the time. Community is one of the number one things that I recommend that you develop and that you actively seek when you are relocating to another country. The second thing that really has a lot to do with the first thing is that absence of familiar family, right? The family that I've known all my life, the friends that I've known in my last season of life and that aren't with me on this part of my journey. That's a process, and like going through that process is a challenge for many people in different ways. I have some friends that have fantastic, really supportive family members, and I am so grateful for them to be able to have that, because it truly is a privilege and an honor to have that sense of support with family. I don't necessarily have that. So what has happened and what has come into my life is a spiritual family. So I've attracted people into my life that have really been able to see me deeply and vulnerably and accept me in ways that I've never felt accepted before. And I call them my spiritual family. So I've got some sisters, some brothers, some uncles, some aunties, and even some father figures that have really shown me that comfort and support in the absence of what family that I've known my whole life. And again, like that is the part of community that I've been intentional about, that I really make sure that I pour into, that fortifies me in this transition and through, these highs and lows. But it can be a challenge. It can look like grief on some days. And, when there's holidays or remembrances, that's typically when I begin to feel those feels. And it's also when I'm conscious enough to reach out and share with my family, my spiritual family, hey, this is something that I'm going through or that I'm feeling. Can you hold space for me? Do you have the emotional capacity right now to support me? And most oftentimes they say yes, especially my African family and friends. Like, they don't say no to that. But, it's something that Americans, like, most of the time they don't say no, but it's something that we're aware of because we tend to carry so much. And that's another thing that I just love about being in Africa is it is a culture of family centered. Family is first, and it's not just something that's said, it's meant. And I love that. So it really helps out a lot. The third challenge that can come with expat life, I talk about it a lot in my videos and, in different ways, but is the, different culture. Going into a completely different culture that comes with different languages, that comes with different religions, that comes with different expectations of you, whether it be gender role, whether it be a societal influence, whether it's a social status or an economic status, right? Like understanding a totally different culture and being sensitive and respectful to that. A lot of people have shared, be yourself, be who you are, don't dim your light. And yes, I agree to that. I also recognize that coming from a place like America, which is a very narcissistic society, we have elevated ideals of self that sometimes just need to come on down. And that's what happens when you come to a different country. You are forced to, if you're humble enough to do so, if you're willing enough to really learn and understand a culture, humility is required. And that's a level of maturity as well that is necessary if you not only want to be accepted, but you want to acclimate, and you want to acclimate easier with less of these highs and lows, that I'm talking about. So it's learning the cultures and the customs of the country that you're in. And this takes time. This can be intimidating. It can be hard. It can come with hardships and, some bumping of the head and walls and, but it's a part of the process that really can expand you also. It just creates, like, your brain starts to expand in different ways, and there's blockages that open up that can connect you with parts of your body, your mind, your spirit, your chakras, right, that you may never have experienced before. And that is one of the ways in which I choose to look at it as a challenge. Y'all know I have my notes. So it provides that expansion that you're really looking for as an expat. If you're open, right, you have now this worldview, you really have a level of empathy and compassion, and it helps you, it builds you, it creates character, and it's something that's undescribable. Many of my expats, you guys can relate. Leave me some comments and let me know how it's affected you. How have you changed in dealing with new cultures, and maybe, maybe muting yourself a bit, maybe humbling yourself a bit to go into this new space and believing one thing over the other. I know, a tangible thing that I've learned is understanding what polygamy is like. Coming from an American culture where it's, no, that's my man, I don't share, to now being in a continent where several countries have a standard of polygamy or history of polygamy, not being so quick to judge or think it is one thing over the other, and finding the benefits and the values of it. Is it something I'm totally like into or seeking? Not necessarily, but it's something that I respect and I find value in, and I understand the purpose of it and how it can bring value to an African society. So that's one of the tangible ways in which I have learned those new customs, and in a way that was probably kind of hard for me to understand, but required a level of humility for me to expand my understanding and develop empathy and compassion towards, right? And so the last part of being an expat that's probably the hardest, or has been, one of the biggest strengths or growing pains for me, is that vulnerability. Coming from an experience of healing in the US, where I was coming out of a really toxic work environment, growing through a really challenging relationship, my immediate reaction was to just guard myself, to protect myself, to be weary, to be concerned about who I could trust. And again, when you're coming to a foreign country, everybody tells you, don't trust them. Don't, be so quick to trust. Make sure you're mindful of your space and your things. And while yes, some of this is true, you actually struggle the more you're like this in another country. The way to really thrive and find openness and expansion in your thoughts and your actions is through vulnerability. I didn't share my journey on YouTube for the first year and a half that I was in Africa. And part of that was just because I wanted to learn, observe, but I was doing a lot of self-reflection and self-work. And there were a lot of things that I experienced in my first year that I just didn't know how to communicate or effectively comprehend and share. And I didn't want something to live online that was like ignorant. And I know I have shared things where I was wrong, and that's another thing. You can't be afraid to be wrong. That's a part of being vulnerable. Like, you just can't be afraid of being wrong, because that fear of doing anything wrong is not going to help you. You learn in the process, you learn in the mistakes, and that is what has really helped me, is knowing that vulnerability is just a part of the process. And as I become more vulnerable, I grow more, I do more self-reflection, I become a better communicator, you loosen my boundaries, but enforce them when it's necessary. I can speak up for myself because I can check in with myself and know, hey, I'm being vulnerable right now, but I don't like the way this person is responding to that. Let me communicate what I don't like or how I don't like it, instead of just backing away or shutting down. And I'm still working through this. Like, I'm no expert, but I recognize that being open and vulnerable opens me up to opportunities and relationships and friendships, spiritual, family, and even like romantic relationships in a new way that I'm learning to appreciate, y'all. So those are some of the challenges that I've dealt with as an expat. but I also recognize how these challenges have fortified me and strengthened me in ways that I'm so grateful for. I'm so grateful for. So if that resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Are there any other fears that you have around the challenges that I didn't address that you want to share? Drop it below. And if you feel like someone could find value in the information that I shared, be sure to send it on over to them. They'll be grateful. I will too. And you'll likely get something out of it as well. And if you have an interest in exploring what expat life could look for you, but you're looking for where to start, look through my videos. I have a collection of videos on where to start. And I also have a course called the Expat Expense, which is the ultimate financial blueprint to life abroad, as a special and honoring and celebrating Youth Day in South Africa. I am using a promo code. You can use a promo code. The link is below. Youth Day for 50% off of the Expat Expense. And I can't wait to see you there. Until the next video, I'll see you soon.